Constantly ready.
Okay, awesome. All right. How do we want to open?
You say Craig Fisher and I'll say Brittany Drost.
Okay.
And then you can kind of do whatever normal opening you do.
Okay. Hey, Craig Fisher, thanks so much for joining me today.
Brittany Drost, thanks for joining me.
Of course. I'm so excited about this. I'm usually the one doing the interviewing on my show. So it's fun to just have an open conversation with you.
Yeah, same. I don't get to do this very often. I'm like you. I interview people for my show. And every once in a while, I get together with folks like you and just have a discussion, which I think is fruitful and will help, a lot of the people who do the types of things we do.
Sure. And for those of you watching, this idea was born out of a brief conversation you and I had and said, hey, let's record this. Let's take this to the masses, and let people just hear about the conversation we were having.
Yes. So I called you and I was referred to you by our good friend, Katrina. And my brother-in-law is a small business owner and he owns a online clothing business with his wife. And he's looking for, expertise in e-commerce and, things like that he really doesn't have. And not that you're the technical expert, but you know how to help him get to that point, right? And so you're going to be working with him, which is great. But in the conversation that you and I had, a lot of great things came out about how we develop business, how we nurture customers. And figure we should chat.
Totally. And you're right. Like so many people, they feel like the ultimate solution for their business is hidden in just the next right piece of software or the next, just change in their process. But they're ignoring the biggest component of it all, which is people. Each one of us has people in our business, whether it's internal or external customer facing, there are people somewhere in that. And to ignore the huge role that plays is to really just not do your business justice and in how to improve it. I'm sure you see this in your work too.
I see it all the time. And one of the things that's interesting to me about that is now in the gig economy, which is actually real, turns out, right? I mean, my whole team is fractional. They do work with me and they do other things as well. And that's the wonderful thing about what, COVID brought to us, among other things, right? But, how do you develop fractional people, right? How do you say, you might be doing amazing things over here, but I need you to also do this if you want to learn it. And, I think that is a human thing and a coaching thing.
Totally. I also have a fractional team. And so I'd be curious to hear from you, like, what have you learned from working with that and what has worked well as far as inspiring people or motivating them to really give their best to your work?
Yeah. So people want to learn, right? And so I invite everyone to all my customer calls, for instance, so they can hear how I do things, right? How do I get to a point of agreement on a leadership alignment call? How do I develop an opportunity for a quarterly extension? What are the words that I use and how am I convincing people with data that, this probably should happen for your organization? And so I think the learning is the biggest motivator. Money's fine, but people like to feel appreciated and enjoy what they're doing, and they like to learn.
Completely. And I've actually studied a bit of this in formal academia, and people much more respond to non-monetary and incentives and benefits right now. You can always sell out to the highest bidder, but people know they're getting smarter. They know that that's not necessarily going to serve them or make them excited about going to work. And, with the limitations in some of our lifestyle over the past almost 2 years because of COVID, we're really looking for more fulfillment from our career choices, from our jobs. And so having those other benefits like that development can really be beneficial and really speak to somebody.
One of the things I do for my customers, and my customers are employers, by the way, I help employers attract talent, right? I'm not a staffing agency. I'm more of a recruitment, marketing, and advertising type agency where I do brand development and attraction strategies, funnel marketing to get job candidates to apply to jobs. But part of what I do is employee engagement and employee advocacy, right, as part of my attraction methodology. And some of that includes doing training sessions for groups of employees, whether it's all the recruiting and talent acquisition team or the sales team or whoever, to do search engine optimization on their LinkedIn profile.
Mm.
And this is a pretty cool thing that actually LinkedIn paid me to teach all of their salespeople how to do when I developed the methodology for it.
Mhm.
And so it's gone, pretty big over the last 10 years. But my
Yeah.
team gets to sit in on that. And they say every time they learn something new, when they sit in on a training that I'm doing for a customer. And so it's like they're getting more training because every customer is different. So some nuance comes out, and you can kill two birds with one stone. And we
Yeah.
record everything, right? So posterity.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So I use LinkedIn as well. And I'm in Sales Navigator and all of that, looking for people who are a great fit for me,
Right.
learning more about them. Tell me about, what you've developed and how people can use it.
Yeah. So turns out I took LinkedIn apart, right? I'm a hack web developer, self-taught, right? But I took LinkedIn apart when it first came out, and I figured out that all its search results are driven from Google, and so it's a really good search engine within itself, but it's a really good source for search as well. So if you search
Right.
anything about people on Google, you get LinkedIn results.
Right.
And it
But
turns out
indexing,
that's
yeah.
right. And it turns out if you put the right keywords in the right places a number of times near other things, then Google gets really good at putting you at the top of search results for specific things, right? So
Mhm.
I've got a sub page on my business page called LinkedIn Training Dallas. And I also have the words LinkedIn Training Dallas in my headline, in my summary about section. Under all of my job descriptions, I have a keyword cloud, the same keywords over and over again. And they are industry terms that you want to be known for, right? Specific words that you want to be known for that aren't common, your name, your company's name, and a location. Turns out people still use location to search for things because they want to find someone local. And so any location you're trying to target, right? If you're trying to get customers in Athens, Georgia, you would do Brittany Drozd, leadership coach, Athens, Georgia, right? And so if someone were to search for that and you had it multiple times in your LinkedIn profile and you also had it as a sub page on your business on LinkedIn, you would come up on page 1 for search results for that thing. And it turns out if you do this with multiple of your employees, your whole company starts to come up higher in search results for things like currently hiring for JavaScript developers in Athens, Georgia at
Oh,
ABC, right? Yeah. And so that talent attraction thing works for business development. It's magic.
right. That's so smart. And so I'm sure you've heard of the Great Resignation.
Mm-hmm.
What has this meant for you? What trends are you seeing? And, why is this super important?
Yeah. So for us, we pivot as entrepreneurs, right, with the market. But so my pivot has been, since all of this, hourly workers are hard to come by. And so all of my business has been working with big companies searching for hourly workers for the last year. Ross Dress for Less, Supercuts, Subway, companies like that, healthcare, DaVita. And so how do you attract people? Where do you find them in the world? Use your empathy map to figure out what they're doing during their day. You make your target persona and you figure out, how do I get in front of these folks? You got to be in front of somebody 7 times before they're more likely to respond to your email, like in their peripheral vision. And so, I help employers show up all over the place to their target audience. And it's popular now because completed job applications are hard to come by. People will start job applications, or they'll start and then ghost because they don't really want a job.
I was
Right?
just reading about that.
Yeah.
Harvard Business Review a second ago, like
Mm-hmm.
this abandonment, even though they go all the way to completing.
Yeah. Fun story about that. 10 years ago or 12, something like that, 2008 or 9, it was the same story. And I actually was part of an article for Harvard Business Review back then.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Right.
Really been in this stuff for a long time. True
Too
expert.
long. Yeah. And so how about for you, what are you noticing that the pandemic and the, economic impact and everything else has meant for your business?
Sure. I mean, so I work with a ton of entrepreneurs who are small business owners. They have revenues like under 50 million. Um, but much less than that for those of you who are watching whose business is less than 50 million. And they're dealing with a lot of the same issues, and they just feel stifled or just kind of handcuffed and not able to make the management decisions they feel like they want to make because of the limitations around hiring. They feel like if they make this misstep, that a talented person might quit, and they can't afford to lose them. And so they just feel like they are not able to make the management decisions they want to make out of fear of losing people and not being able to replace them. And that's really challenging, when you're trying to drive performance and, move certain elements of your business along.
Yeah. And I think that stifling fear is a limiting factor for all kinds of things, right? I mean, people are just afraid to make that mistake. That could just mean the end of everything. And the reality is the mistake helps you grow. And so even if you make a mistake, right, you're learning something from it. And I don't think you can show your employees enough love, and you can smother them with it, and I think they're going to be okay.
Totally. When people aren't used to it, like think about how many even places you've gone, think beyond employment, where you don't feel appreciated or recognized or whatever. And when you get that, it is so meaningful. I try to tell people all the time that public employee praise is free. And
That's
it's
right.
one of the most powerful things you can do to drive performance and engagement and ultimately loyalty with your team. It costs employers so much money to replace people, get them onboarded and trained and up to speed to be at the production level that they were at before with the previous person. It is way less costly and time consuming to invest in the team members that you have now, to develop them, to show them that love, and to just ask about them. To ask what's going on for them. I hear all the time, I don't have time for this. I'm up to my eyeballs with stuff to do. I don't have time for this. But you don't have time to lose a really great employee either, and try to fix that gap.
So we talked a minute ago. I love your point, and I'm gonna tack onto it. We talked a minute ago about how long I've been doing this stuff, and literally I've been through 3 downturns in the market. So that's how long I've been doing it. Major ones, right? And so I see the cycle, but the idea is that over time, I'm consistent with my message, with putting myself out there, with posting helpful content for people, just consistent, very, very, very consistent. It's not a ton. I'm not as prolific as some people, but over time I am wildly consistent. And so I'll get to the end of a training sometimes, and the manager will say, what if we don't have time to post content on a regular basis? I'm like, I think you missed the whole point of the entire presentation, but you just make it part of your routine. Tee it up in an app on Sunday, right? So that you have everything going out across the week, or whatever you have to do, 15 minutes every day, 10 minutes. And it should be the same thing with employee praise and appreciation and gratitude. You need to practice every day. I've got a gratitude journal that I write in every day, and it reminds me I need to say something, publicly or personally to my folks.
Mm-hmm. Right. I hear that all the time too. I'll be in a one-on-one conversation with a leader or the CEO, and they'll tell me how amazing somebody is doing, or how they stepped up in a way beyond their expectations or their role. And we'll pause, and I'll have them actually write that out in the email right then, to ensure that gets shared. Because if you're sharing it with me, I think how amazing it would be to hear that as the employee, that you thought of them, that it was meaningful enough to share it with me, that needs to be also made, available to the person who went above and beyond.
Well, and it reaps rewards, right? There's karma involved in this. And I take it a step further sometimes with employers. When you're onboarding your new people, rarely do you, at that point when they're brand new, take an opportunity to send them a note and say, I really appreciate you. Thank you very much. Tell me about your, candidate experience. How did you feel applying to this job, and how's everything going so far? And then at the end of that, you can say, now, if you feel strongly about this, click here and go post some of that on Glassdoor for us. Right? I mean, it's a little self-serving, but it works. It just works. People want to feel heard and acknowledged. And if you ask them to, they're glad to share it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially if it's genuine. If you did the first part of, having that moment with just your team internally first.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same with asking for referrals, testimonials about your experience, even just with me. I have to do it all the time. And I tend to ask after they just shared something really valuable and explicit about what it was that was great about working with me in a particular way, because that's what people want to know, right? Is, well, why is it great? What happened? Whatever. But that also helps guide other people's decision making. So if like attracts like, and if that's the experience you had and you make that public and you're articulate about it, what has happened specifically, then you're going to drive more people that are similar to you or that have those same values, towards the organization, which is important. We want that kind of alignment.
We do want that kind of alignment, and like does attract like, and there's nothing wrong with, can I quote you on that, right? Leaders appreciate that. If they say something good about you that you find brilliant, you light up, you mind if I quote you on, I'm writing that down. Is it cool? And they have no problem with that. And, I'm a big fan of keeping a brag book. So every time a good outcome happens, or you get a good email from a customer or someone who saw you on a webinar or anything, take a snapshot of it and put it in an online document that you keep going, right? A PowerPoint, online, whatever. And then anytime a customer or anyone else says, what have you done for me lately? You can just say, here you go, right? Here's all the stuff. And if you do that on a regular basis, you'll find, and take notes, by the way, because you can't search pictures, right, with keywords. So take notes, right, when you put that post there of what it is, what it said, who said it, when it was, and then you can constantly go back and reference, good outcomes, which I love.
Mm-hmm. Do you share some of these things like on your LinkedIn? Is it, would you recommend people, employers, or that consultants do something like that for SEO and LinkedIn?
Oh, absolutely. I think everyone. So when you get a good snippet of your brag book, turn it into an Acrobat presentation, and those are real easy to share now, right? You can make a flip book on LinkedIn, which is great. Yeah, big fan.
Yeah, very cool. What's the number one thing that somebody could do, like for those famous, I don't have time people, like a small business owner or an individual, even like to either gain more, not gain more visibility, but really like in a meaningful sense. I'm not for content's sake. I'm much more with you with that quality over quantity. What's one or two things that could be impactful for either somebody's career, getting noticed, getting recruited, getting hired, or for the employer?
So the main thing is keep a good ratio of gives versus asks. I use the 5-to-1 ratio. It's also the 20% ratio. It's good for relationships. It's good for everything. Give 5 times more than you ask, right? So send helpful stuff, send praise, send something funny, right, out to your, social places 5 times. And then every once in a while, oh, by the way, I'm hiring, or, oh, by the way, I've got an opening for a new customer, or, oh, by the way, check out my webinar, whatever that is. Because we're constantly creating and churning out snippets of activity, right? And it's just snippets of us, and maybe it's helpful, maybe it's not. But sometimes third-party content is better than people just seeing you every time. And so I really think keeping that mix in mind, that 5-to-1, it's easy to remember. It's nothing magical about it, except it has been proven.
Right. Yeah. Right? The numbers continue to support that 5-to-1 everywhere.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think just that. And so, what is it what's your magic formula for a similar kind of thing when people, they need, to kind of amplify what they're doing?
So same point that you made before with that consistency, that it's not necessarily about cadence. That's going to be different for everyone. The messaging might be different for the individual people that you're speaking to, but that consistency really across the board helps get those messages delivered over the long run and really shapes the behavior and the performance over time. And so the best thing that you can do is schedule it. Schedule that meeting, schedule that one-on-one time where you set aside, even if it's 5 minutes, even if it's less, to be explicit, be intentional, be clear, and present as you deliver that messaging. And this isn't just for, hey, you're doing an awesome job. This is also for critical feedback too. Make the time and make it regular, and your team will come to expect it. They will come to appreciate it. They will seek it out. And that is ultimately how you get to steer that behavior, that performance, that direction that business owners are looking for.
I like it. I think while I'm sitting here, when we're done, I'm going to make a video to put on LinkedIn thanking my employees for their great service.
Awesome. So our job here is done then.
Thanks, Brittany. Great to see you.
You too. It's been so fun chatting. We should definitely do more of these because it is easy and there's a lot of alignment. And yeah, I'd love to hear what people think about it, what value they got, what was the strongest message that really hit home for them. So we welcome all kinds of feedback in your comments. And yeah, until next time, thanks for watching.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.